The roar of the engine was a symphony of rebellion, the wind a sharp scream against his helmet. On the twisting canyon roads outside Los Angeles, Caleb Thorne pushed his Ducati to its limits, leaning so far into the curve that his knee nearly scraped the asphalt. "Damn, that's a clean line," Leo shouted over the fading engine noise, offering a celebratory whistle. Pure poetry in motion. Caleb swung his leg over, stabilizing the bike. He pulled off his helmet, shaking out his recently bleached white hair. A profound sense of satisfaction washed over him. This was freedom, the raw thrill of speed far more intoxicating than any romance. Leo tossed him a cold can of craft beer, a grin playing on his lips. He told Caleb he should just give it up. The Omega he was chasing was captivated by Julian Vance, and no one could compete with an enigma like him. Julian. Always Julian. Caleb tilted his head back, draining the can in a few long swallows. The name was a constant irritant, a shadow that seemed to fall over every part of his life. The Thorne and Vance families were too deeply entangled in business for him to ever truly escape. A surge of frustration made him crush the aluminum can in his fist. Julian had returned from his studies abroad and seamlessly taken over his family's corporate empire, his status unassailable. Then came the second presentation, transforming him into the rarest of designations. An enigma capable of marking even an alpha. The thought soured Caleb's mood completely. He leaned against his bike, boasting to Leo that being an enigma meant nothing. One day, he declared, he would have Julian beneath him. He hadn't even finished the sentence when the distinct, deep purr of a powerful engine cut through the night. A Maybach, its headlights blinding, swept around the bend and approached them. A cold dread crept up Caleb's spine as he recognized the vehicle. The car glided to a halt, and the driver's door opened. A tall, imposing figure emerged. Dressed in a tailored black coat that emphasized his broad shoulders and long legs, the man was the very picture of quiet power. Leo's breath hitched. He stammered Julian's name, asking what he was doing there. Julian ignored him, his gaze fixed on Caleb, intense and unreadable. The air grew heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. He asked Caleb if he was done playing. Seeing the volatile atmosphere, Leo made a hasty retreat, leaving Caleb alone to face the man who was both his rival and his obsession. The evening's thrill was utterly ruined. Fury surged through Caleb. He lunged forward, grabbing the front of Julian's expensive coat. He snarled that he had told him countless times to stay out of his business. Julian was taller, forcing Caleb onto the balls of his feet to maintain eye contact, a fact that only fueled his anger. Julian remained unmoved, his expression an unyielding mask of composure as he looked down at Caleb. He questioned the wisdom of drinking and racing on a mountain road in the middle of the night, his voice low and tight with restrained anger. He asked Caleb just how many lives he thought he had to waste. Caleb knew Julian was right, but his pride refused to yield. No alpha wanted to be dominated, especially not by their sworn enemy. His agitation grew, causing his own pheromones to stir restlessly. The sharp, aggressive scent of mint began to saturate the air. A slight frown creased Julian's brow as he told Caleb to get his pheromones under control. Defiance flared in Caleb. He offered a provocative smirk, tauntingly asking if the great Julian Vance was scared. He then released his pheromones in a deliberate, aggressive wave, a torrent of mint rushing towards Julian. Julian's breath caught, and a storm of emotion flickered in his dark eyes. Caleb watched him, a smug satisfaction growing inside. So much for the superior enigma. He seemed just as susceptible to a top-tier alpha's dominance. Retracting his scent, Caleb patted Julian's cheek condescendingly, telling him he would let him off the hook this time. As he tried to pull his hand away, Julian's fingers clamped around his wrist like a steel trap. The strength was astonishing. Caleb couldn't break free. He looked up, ready to unleash a torrent of curses, but was stopped by the profound depth of Julian's gaze. In that moment, as their eyes locked, Julian's throat moved with a subtle swallow. Then, an overwhelming flood of pheromones, the rich, potent scent of aged whiskey, crashed over Caleb, piercing his defenses without mercy. He was completely stunned. His legs gave out from under him, his body betraying him as he stumbled forward. Julian caught him effortlessly, pulling him flush against his chest. Caleb had always assumed he would find Julian's scent repulsive, a violation. The reality was the complete opposite. It was an attraction powerful and utterly fatal. A feverish heat coursed through him, the whiskey scent igniting his blood. Every instinct screamed at him to get closer, to press himself against the source of this intoxicating aroma. His body knew on a primal level that this man's pheromones were a perfect match for his own. His breathing grew ragged. He was mesmerized, helpless as Julian's hand moved to the nape of his neck, his fingers tracing the sensitive skin there. The scent of whiskey clung to his touch, setting small fires wherever it grazed. Dizziness clouded his vision, his mouth went dry, and his mind dissolved into a chaotic mess of raw, desperate need. He wanted to hold, to kiss, to consume more of that scent. Julian looked down at him, and through the haze, Caleb thought he heard a low chuckle. Cool fingertips pressed against the gland on his neck, a gentle but firm pressure. With that single touch, the last thread of his sanity snapped. Control was lost. He threw himself at Julian, and then the world faded to black. When Caleb opened his eyes, he was in an unfamiliar room. A team of people in white coats stood around the bed, a scene that sent his adrenaline spiking. He immediately prepared to release a defensive wave of pheromones, but a hand gently covered his. He turned his head and saw Julian, who leaned in slightly and gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. Julian calmly explained that this was his residence, and the medical team was his. They were there to check on him. As Julian spoke, memories of the previous night flooded back, fragmented but potent. He had a sinking feeling he'd done something irreversible. The lead doctor approached to take his blood pressure, smiling kindly. He recounted how, when they arrived, Caleb had been clinging to Julian, refusing to let go, calling him honey and alternating between demanding kisses and crying when he didn't get them. It had taken several shots of sedatives to calm him down. Caleb's face burned with humiliation. The doctor, noticing his distress, quickly clarified that this was a standard alpha courtship response to a highly compatible partner. He explained that Caleb's body had been overwhelmed by the pheromones. Then, adjusting his glasses, the doctor delivered the bad news. The compatibility was so high that Caleb had developed an addiction to Julian's pheromones. He warned that the withdrawal syndrome would be severe. The only way to gradually desensitize himself was through frequent contact with Julian. Caleb asked warily what kind of contact. The doctor averted his eyes, explaining that touching, kissing, and ultimately, being marked by Julian. Any act that exchanged bodily fluids and pheromones would be necessary. Caleb bristled at the idea of being marked by him, arguing that it should be the other way around. The doctor sighed, patiently explaining that because Julian was an enigma, only he could do the marking. That was the last straw. Caleb threw on his jacket and stormed out of the room. He revved his motorcycle, shooting a final, defiant middle finger at Julian before speeding away. He'd rather suffer through hell than let that man mark him. He arrived home in the early hours of the morning to find his father, Marcus Thorne, waiting for him, furious. He demanded to know if Caleb had been out street racing again. Caleb, dismissive, said he'd just been for a ride, and besides, Julian had cut him short. His father launched into a familiar tirade about his irresponsibility, his bleached hair, his reckless spending, and how he was squandering the family legacy. He inevitably brought up Julian as a model of success, a recent graduate already running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. The mention of Julian's name grated on Caleb. He told his father to drop it. His father retorted that Julian had been his class president in high school. They had known each other for years, yet none of Julian's discipline had rubbed off on Caleb. The lecture continued, each word stoking Caleb's frustration. Before he could argue back, his father delivered the final blow. It was time for Caleb to learn the business. There was a corporate gala that evening hosted by the Vance family, and his attendance was not optional. At the gala, the air was thick with perfume and the sound of clinking glasses. Caleb loosened his tie, already on edge. Across the room, Julian was the center of attention, effortlessly charming a circle of business magnates in a perfectly tailored suit. Caleb tried to keep his distance, but their paths were destined to cross. The doctor had been right. The addiction was real. Their eyes met across the crowded, glittering ballroom, and just that fleeting glance was enough to make Caleb's blood heat and his heart hammer in his chest. The gland on his neck began to burn, an early sign of withdrawal. He tried to suppress the feeling, downing a glass of champagne in one go. The cold liquid did nothing to cool the fire inside him. Instead, it only reminded him of the whiskey scent he craved. A quick glance down confirmed his body's embarrassing reaction. Cursing under his breath, he knew he had to get out of there. He found an empty lounge off the main hall and stumbled inside, ripping his collar open. He injected himself with a pheromone inhibitor, but the relief never came. The fire in his veins only intensified, and the gland on his neck throbbed painfully. This wasn't a rut. This was withdrawal, and it was agonizing. He curled into a ball in the corner, head splitting. He had expected it to be bad, but not this debilitating. As he struggled to his feet, footsteps approached. A familiar, low voice cut through his pain, asking the young master if he needed help. Julian was kneeling in front of him. He reached out, his cool fingers brushing against the overheated skin of Caleb's neck. A trickle of calming whiskey scent flowed from his touch, soothing the raging mint. The relief was instantaneous, like finding an oasis in a desert. Caleb grabbed the front of Julian's suit, his voice desperate. It wasn't enough. Julian simply watched him, his expression unreadable. He whispered that this was all he had to offer, his eyes swirling with an intense, unspoken emotion. He asked Caleb to tell him what he wanted him to do. Caleb's mind was a maelstrom of conflicting instincts. There was only one way, a temporary mark. But his alpha pride recoiled at the thought of being bitten, of having a more powerful pheromone forced into his system. Julian moved closer, his touch tracing a line of fire along Caleb's skin, melting his resolve. He was going insane. He needed Julian's pheromones more than he needed his pride. Desire finally won. Caleb grabbed Julian's tie, yanking him forward. As Julian braced himself against the wall, Caleb bit down hard on his ear, his voice a ragged plea. "Mark me." The moment Julian's teeth pierced the gland on his neck, tears of pain sprang to Caleb's eyes. He hadn't known it would hurt this much. He immediately regretted it, trying to shove Julian away, but his wrists were caught and pinned. He was completely trapped against the wall as Julian bit down harder, flooding his system with an overwhelming wave of whiskey. His consciousness began to fray, drowning in the intoxicating scent. When it was finally over, he was trembling and exhausted. Julian held him, gently stroking his back. The gesture felt strangely intimate, a post-coital tenderness they hadn't earned. Caleb tried to push him away, but his legs buckled, and Julian caught him again, lifting him easily into his arms. The sensation was unnervingly familiar. Julian had held him like this once before in high school. Back then, they were legendary rivals. Julian, the untouchable student council president, and Caleb, the defiant problem child. Julian had made it his personal mission to police Caleb's every move. Cutting class, fighting, even smoking in the bathroom. Caleb was convinced Julian hated him, as he showed such detached indifference to everyone else. Yet, during a varsity basketball game, after Caleb took a hard fall, it was Julian who had vaulted from the stands first. He had scooped Caleb up into a bridal carry and marched him to the nurse's office amidst the shocked gasps and cheers of the student body. Caleb, mortified, had buried his face in Julian's chest, trying to ignore how fast his rival's heart was beating. For a moment, he thought Julian might actually care. But that brief truce was shattered when Julian intercepted a love letter meant for Caleb from an Omega in another class, coldly him to drop any inappropriate ideas. The supposed concern on the basketball court, Caleb concluded, must have been just another way for Julian to mess with him. From that day on, he swore Julian Vance was his enemy for life. After the gala, Caleb slept for a day and a night. He awoke feeling refreshed, the pain gone, replaced by a sense of calm he hadn't felt in years. He touched his neck, feeling the faint imprint of the bite mark. Being marked by his rival was infuriating, but he couldn't deny its effectiveness. His mint pheromones were finally docile. With his body restored, his mind immediately turned to his motorcycle. He was about to call Leo to set up a ride when a text from his father came through. His bank accounts were frozen. For the next month, he was to shadow Julian at his company and learn the business. And if he didn't comply, his entire collection of motorcycles would be sold. His resentment was a palpable force in the corporate office. For a full week, no one dared approach him. He spent his days at his assigned desk either sleeping or playing games on his phone, leaving the second the clock hit 5. The management team left him alone. They knew he was the rebellious Thorn heir, forced here by his father. Julian, for his part, was surprisingly tolerant. When Caleb refused to work directly with him, Julian simply assigned a secretary to see to his needs. Their paths rarely crossed, which suited Caleb just fine. But the peace didn't last. The temporary mark began to fade. The bite mark lightened, and the telltale heat returned to his neck. His pheromones grew restless again. The headaches returned with a vengeance. One afternoon, he was slumped over his desk, curled in a ball of misery, when he felt a gentle touch on his neck. It was gone in an instant, but the faint scent it left behind lingered. He jolted awake to find a coat draped over his shoulders, a size too big for him, carrying the subtle aroma of whiskey. He saw a young Omega from a nearby desk hastily putting away his phone, the camera's shutter sound still echoing softly. The Omega blushed, stammering that Mr. Vance had put the coat on him and that they looked so good together, he couldn't resist taking a picture. Caleb waved it off, too preoccupied to care about being secretly photographed. He was fighting every instinct in his body that screamed at him to bury his face in the coat and inhale Julian's scent like a desperate addict. He gritted his teeth. Julian was doing this on purpose. He knew Caleb's withdrawal was starting again. The coat, laced with his pheromones, was a deliberate trap, and Caleb was walking right into it. Julian's office occupied the entire top floor. He had given Caleb the highest security clearance. The facial recognition scanner beeped, and the heavy doors slid open. Inside, Julian was listening to a subordinate's report, his expression cold and professional. It was the first time Caleb had seen him in his element. The young enigma exuded an aura of immense pressure, his silver-framed glasses giving his handsome face a severe, almost ascetic quality. What a phony. Clenching his fists, Caleb fought the turmoil within him. Julian noticed him and gestured for his employee to pause. The man bowed respectfully and left, the office door closing with a heavy thud behind him. In the sealed silence, Caleb felt like prey caught in a hunter's snare. Julian set down his pen and rose, walking slowly towards him. With each step, the whiskey scent in the air grew stronger, making Caleb's breath catch in his throat. Julian stopped in front of him, a faint, knowing smile on his lips, and asked if he needed something. Caleb hated that calm, collected demeanor. He forced himself to move, shoving Julian back against the wall. He told him to stop pretending and lend him some pheromones. Julian allowed the manhandling, looking down at Caleb as he nonchalantly loosened his own tie. He pointed out that this was the second time and that there was a price. Debts had to be repaid. He asked Caleb if he was sure he understood. Repay what? The air was now thick with the scent of whiskey, clouding Caleb's judgment. He tugged at Julian's collar impatiently, nodding frantically. He said he could afford it, whatever it was. A low laugh rumbled in Julian's chest. Vaguely, Caleb was aware of being led to the large executive desk, of a pen being placed in his hand, and a document set before him. He couldn't read the words, he didn't care to. Under the influence of the pheromones, his rational mind had ceased to function. After scrawling his signature, he turned, presenting the back of his neck to Julian. He mumbled that it hurt last time, asking him to be gentle. Julian's breathing hitched. After a long moment, he leaned down and placed a soft, reverent kiss on Caleb's neck. His voice was raw when he promised it wouldn't hurt this time. He didn't lie. The second marking was almost painless, infused with a strange, dizzying pleasure that made Caleb moan, his body going limp. When it was over, he lay in Julian's arms for a long time, slowly coming back to himself. He touched the fresh mark on his neck, incredulous. He asked if Julian had been practicing on someone else. His technique had improved so much. Julian chuckled, his voice still hoarse as he smoothed Caleb's shirt. He assured Caleb he would only ever mark him. The statement felt loaded, but Caleb was too tired to analyze it. It was closing time. Feeling surprisingly content, he patted Julian's cheek and thanked him for his hospitality, saying he'd see him tomorrow. As he turned to leave, Julian's voice stopped him, reminding him of their agreement. A sense of dread washed over Caleb as Julian handed him a copy of the document he'd just signed. The title was in bold red letters, Cohabitation Agreement. It was a trap. The document was a list of tyrannical rules. Caleb, the second party, was forbidden from staying out late, smoking, drinking, and racing. Violation of any term resulted in a $30 million penalty. He seized Julian by the collar again, demanding to know what he was playing at. Julian was unfazed. He stated calmly that Caleb needed his pheromones, and he had no desire to see Caleb running around with other people while wearing his mark. He leaned in, whispering by Caleb's ear that it was a mutually beneficial arrangement. After a long, silent standoff, Caleb released him, defeated. He still couldn't understand the enigma's strange possessiveness over a temporary partner. Reluctantly, he moved in. Emerging from the bathroom, he scowled. The entire penthouse was scented with mint, from the air diffusers to the shampoo. It was unnerving. The pajamas left for him, however, fit perfectly, as if custom-made. He wandered through the massive apartment but found no sign of Julian. The workaholic was likely back at the office. The real problem arose when he tried to find a spare bedroom. Every single door was locked except for the master bedroom. Julian's bedroom. Caleb seethed. He was being blatantly forced to share a bed. Fine. He'd just steal all the blankets. But sleep wouldn't come. He tossed and turned, agitated. The entire room, the sheets, the pillows, was saturated with Julian's clean whiskey scent. It felt like an invasion, an intimate encroachment he couldn't escape. With every breath, his mind replayed the memory of being marked. Julian's heated breath, his low voice, the veins standing out on the back of his hand. On a strange impulse, Caleb grabbed Julian's pillow and buried his face in it, taking a deep breath. He shot up in bed, horrified. What was he doing? He was acting like a perverted addict. Sleep was now impossible. To distract himself, he grabbed a book from the nightstand. It was dense and academic. As he flipped through it, a folded, yellowed piece of paper fell out. A love letter. He recognized Julian's handwriting. The letter was passionate and heartfelt, filled with the restrained agony of a secret crush. The date on it was from when Julian was 18. It was addressed only to R. Caleb found it hard to imagine the cold, aloof Julian he knew harboring such intense feelings for someone. A strange, unwelcome ache settled in his chest. He should have been thrilled to discover his rival's secret, but instead, he just felt hollow. Whose attention had Julian held all those years ago? He carefully placed the letter back in the book, trying to push the thought from his mind. A few days later, the letter was forgotten. To his surprise, living with Julian was nice. Despite being forced to share a bed and abide by his puritanical rules, Caleb had to admit Julian was an excellent partner. He would soothe Caleb with his pheromones whenever he was agitated, drive him to and from work without fail, and cook meals tailored to his tastes. He'd gently dry Caleb's hair after a shower and carry him to bed if he fell asleep on the couch. Looking at Julian cutting up an apple for him, Caleb had to wonder. By any measure, he was the one benefiting from their agreement. What was Julian getting out of it? He decided not to question it and simply accepted the slice of apple. It was sweet. His good mood was shattered by a phone call, which he accidentally answered on speaker. A sweet, familiar voice filled the room. It was Natalie, the Omega he had once pursued. She asked if he wanted to meet up and catch up. He had chased her for months, and she had played along, accepting his gifts but never giving a clear answer. Then Julian returned from overseas, and that same night, she had told Caleb, with tears in her eyes, that Julian was the one she truly loved. Now she was calling him out of the blue. He didn't understand. Julian, who had heard the entire call, was watching him, his eyes narrowed. He repeated Caleb's name, Caleb, the sound sharp and laced with something dark. Julian's mood had soured the moment he heard Natalie's name. Caleb knew they knew each other. They had both been part of an exchange program abroad when they were 18. He thought of the letter to R. A horrible realization dawned on him. Natalie Reese. Her middle name. The first letter was R. Julian was in love with Natalie. No wonder he was reacting this way. A sharp, inexplicable pain lanced through Caleb's heart. He ended up meeting Natalie without telling Julian. She was as bubbly as ever, but her cheerfulness now grated on his nerves. When she noticed his impatience, she playfully asked if he was seeing someone. After he denied it, she laughed, saying she knew the rumors about him and Julian living together couldn't be true. The name felt like a punch to the gut. No, they weren't together. Not even friends. The marking, the cohabitation. What did it all mean? Julian was doing all this for him, while secretly loving someone else. Natalie moved closer, her floral omega pheromones a clear invitation. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her face flushed, and confessed that she regretted her decision. She wanted to give them a try. As she leaned in to kiss him, Caleb snapped out of his stupor and pushed her away. He told her coldly that he no longer had any feelings for her, then stood and walked out of the bar without a second glance. Outside, parked across the street, was a Maybach, and leaning against it was Julian. Caleb's blood ran cold, then hot with fury. He stalked towards him, demanding to know if Julian was following him. He accused him of being so afraid that Caleb would steal Natalie from him. Julian didn't answer, his face a thunderous mask. He walked toward Caleb, the oppressive force of his enigma pheromones making Caleb want to retreat, but his back was already against a wall. Julian pinned him there, his hand gripping Caleb's jaw, his voice ice. "You reek of another Omega's scent. Do I need to be harsher to keep you in line, Caleb?" The possessiveness, the anger, it was all for Natalie. The unfairness of it all made something in Caleb snap. He looked Julian dead in the eye, his voice dripping with scorn. "Do you love her that much, Julian?" Julian froze, his grip loosening as he started to say Caleb's name. But Caleb cut him off. He grabbed Julian's tie, pulled him down, and crashed his lips against his. The second he realized what he'd done, he fled. He gunned his motorcycle, the engine screaming as he sped away, but the wind couldn't drown out the frantic pounding of his heart. He was losing his mind. The jealousy, the possessiveness, the confusion. It all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. He was in love with Julian. The sky had turned a bruised purple, and distant thunder rumbled. A storm was coming, a perfect match for his mood. He checked his rearview mirror and saw the Maybach, closing in fast. He tried to shake it, but it stuck to him like glue. He decided to swerve into a narrow side road, but Julian anticipated the move. The Maybach accelerated, shot past him, and skidded to a halt, blocking the road. Caleb slammed on his brakes. The door flew open and Julian strode towards him, a frantic energy about him. Caleb threw off his helmet, about to scream at him for the reckless maneuver, but Julian's hands were already on him, tilting his head back. Before Caleb could struggle, Julian's mouth was on his, a fierce, desperate kiss. At that exact moment, the heavens opened up, and the rain came down in sheets. Back at the penthouse, they were both soaked. Julian got a towel and began to dry Caleb's hair. Caleb stood docilely, still dazed from the kiss. He asked, his voice small, if Julian didn't love Natalie. Julian sighed, a sound of profound exasperation. "Caleb, sometimes I despair. What am I supposed to do when the person I love is such an idiot?" Caleb pressed him about the letter, about the initial R. A look of weary resignation crossed Julian's face. He tapped Caleb's head gently. "Have you forgotten your own middle name?" Caleb froze. Caleb Reese Thorne. The letter was for him. All this time, Julian had loved him. Before he could process the revelation, Julian gently pushed him back. "Go to your room, Caleb. Lock the door. And don't open it tonight, no matter what." He saw it then. The strain on Julian's face, the tremor in his hands. The whiskey scent in the air was becoming overwhelmingly potent. "Don't you see?" Julian's voice was strained. "My rut is here." Julian was already reaching for an inhibitor. Caleb watched him for a second, then walked over, took the syringe from his hand, and tossed it into the trash. He looked Julian in the eye, his voice steady. "Don't use that. Use me. Consider it repayment for the pheromones." He stood on his toes and kissed him. "And about your letter? This is my answer." Outside, the storm raged. Later, when his hands were bound above his head with Julian's tie, Caleb had a fleeting moment of regret. An enigma in Rut was an absolute force of nature, an embodiment of control. The potent whiskey scent consumed him, leaving no room for his mint to even think of resisting. He tried to escape, but Julian held him fast, his voice a low murmur against his skin, promising each time would be the last. As he finally slipped into unconsciousness, Caleb's only thought was that one should never, ever play with fire. The day they went public, Caleb's phone exploded. His father was shocked, texting that he'd only asked Julian to look after him, not elope with him. Leo was apoplectic, complaining that he'd spent weeks denying the very rumors that were now true. And on social media, the employees from Julian's company were celebrating. "My ship has sailed," one post read. He was scrolling through the chaos when a pair of arms wrapped around his waist from behind. A low, sleepy voice, thick with satisfaction, murmured in his ear, "Boyfriend, stop looking at your phone. Look at me." Caleb didn't turn around. "What, you didn't get enough of a look last night?" A low chuckle answered him. Julian turned his face and captured his lips in a deep, possessive kiss. Caleb melted into it, turning in his arms to kiss him back properly. Mint and whiskey finally intertwined. The two boys who were once sworn enemies, now locked in an embrace. The yellowed love letter had finally found its recipient. As they held each other, Julian whispered that he loved him. It was cheesy, and Julian was an infuriating man. But even so, Caleb loved him too. The first time Julian saw Caleb, he was 13, at his mother's funeral. He stood in a corner, watching the guests offer their false condolences. His father already had a pregnant Omega by his side. The world was gray and cold. A light rain began to fall. He didn't care that he was getting wet. The chill matched the one in his heart. Then, a small umbrella appeared over his head. A boy his age put a gentle arm around him. "Don't be sad," the boy had said. "It will make your mom sad." They sat together under that small umbrella for the rest of the afternoon, the boy's warmth a small, vital comfort against the cold. The next time he saw him was at their high school entrance ceremony. Caleb, of course, didn't remember him. He would never know that Julian had chosen that high school just for him. Caleb was dazzling, the center of every room, while Julian could only watch from afar. He did everything he could to get Caleb's attention, stopping him from cutting class, from fighting, from smoking. He knew it made Caleb hate him, but at least Caleb was finally looking at him. On his 18th birthday, he wrote a love letter to Caleb Reese Thorne, a letter he knew he could never send. After graduation, he left the country, burying himself in work and study to fight the constant ache of missing Caleb. He presented as an enigma, and his first thought was that now, finally, they might have a chance. He returned immediately. The night Caleb overdosed on his pheromones, Julian had to fight every impulse to claim him right then and there. Instead, he devised a plan, using Caleb's addiction as an excuse to shamelessly lure him closer, day by day, until he fell willingly into his trap. The moment Caleb kissed him, Julian's heart felt like it would explode. Caleb would never know the truth, that his world had been a desolate, gray landscape, and Caleb was the only color in it. Julian loved him more than anything in the world. He was, and always would be, ready to offer up the heart that beat only for him.